Jolam Panje Sange Drupa Jordan Soki Jonam Janju Pada Dagi Kapsuchi Dagi Junin Dipe Sokam Jolam Panje Sange Drupa Jonam Soki Jonam No Janju Pada Dagi Kapsuchi Sokam Ki Jolam Panje Sange Drupa Tayata Gate Paragate Parasum Gate Bodhi Swaha Tayata Gate Paragate Parasum Gate Bodhi Swaha Tayata Gate Paragate Parasum Gate Bodhi Swaha Tayata Gate Parasum Gate Bodhi Swaha.
Oh yeah, was not doing the shit. Some Tamjig and Sanja Komama Tomana Tamit to the top of Chigi. And did Taba Javala and Castle Lam Lakur, Judges of Choval Lakukuri in a Lakutu and the Judges of Choval and Java Tamja and Touchable Lava Chigi, Lava Lay and Shimba Chigore. Shimbale Tobacho, Tobale, Shumano, Tobacho. And the name by that and Geshe Bushiwala Zeve and Juju Chimboteta Kaza Niki is something what the Kobacha.
And so let's set our motivation. And our motivation is to really do, we must do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. And this means, of course, we must train on the path. And more specifically, we must really train in the Bodhisattva activities to perfect, in fact, all the activities on the Bodhisattva path. And so we need to understand what they are about in order to engage in them. And so here, we are here today to listen to a very special text on this particular topic. The Bodhisattva's Way of Life is composed by the great master and Bodhisattva Master Shantideva.
What
And so as normal too, we set up the requisite visualization in the space in front of us, being our own root guru in the aspect of Buddha Shakyamuni, the greatly compassionate and skillful in means, seated on a throne in the saffron robes of a monk, with one face, two hands, in the meditative, the mudra of meditative absorption, holding an alms bowl filled with nectar.
What did the show? But the winner for the shoe years and what can Rang you Mabachana? Does that because Kalam such a date on the Tuan Swanisha, so Mabachana, that's a Jakabina Yeta, what did what is winner for the years and what the Kubasha. And the day she won Jamba and the Rang the Tago and Jinchi my years seems that muscle never use so what the Kubasha.
So it's important that we have the understanding that the Buddha is actually present, and that this is something that we should cultivate anyway in all times, that the Buddhas are all around and ever present. And that now we also consider that all around us are all kind mother sentient beings. That the central figure that we are visualizing is marked by the three syllables at the crown, at the throat, and home at the heart, as are all sentient beings and ourselves.
Yeah, Kangal almost and to said the man, Toma Tuba Obo, Konge, and Joe on Jamba Tuga horse. What did the church on cover Jamba arm over Tuga home over what did the Eagle set up? Tuga Hole, we said part of member trainer, and the Shingram Jan and Debe, and Castle the Tapanja, Shingram Jan Debe, Ishibana, Ishiba, Taka, all at the Jamba Chanda, Ishiba, Toma Tuba over number Chantan, and Toma Tuba over the Tim. And the Castle that all encore, Chulama. And Lubale, and Takajo, Miki, we can watch what did you come.
So these letters are colored the white Om, the red A, and the blue Hung. From the blue Hung at the central figure, lights emanate, entering into all of the pure realms, inviting both the wisdom beings and the empowering deities. They respond to that invitation and come with the wisdom beings dissolving into the central figure, and then the empowering deities conferring the nectar of empowerment, which overflows at the crown, which forms into the figure of Akshobhya.
what did the commercial, what is commercial? And the number 2 bell obo la maybe and the country Kasoda. Maybe and Kaso Kuso to Yunde Tebekone and the Tawetama, Yichigitema, Mundukateva. And the Ranga Tago to just Tincher, my just some Tangela, maybe and Ninja. What is commercial?
So then we, in reflecting on the qualities of such an enlightened being as the Munindra, the Buddha, that we are visualizing in front, we developed the faith of conviction, pure faith, and the manifest faith. That in reflecting on the suffering of all countless mother sentient beings all around us, this strong sense of compassion arises.
What the Korea to make Nazula and a core Tame Bachata, Mutunata, Chigni, Kewa Chigni, Keja Maruata, Coat and a matter about Korea to Mutun in Yontate, and Chikaso the Marzulta, Labri Shun Sarmabu Chansare, and Labrina Swan and Shade, and it's a Korea to make it Samota. Rota Kaja, what it is to assume that I get back. Because Dunga, Nasu Yana to Samatan and Dile Dunga, now the Missubet, Ninji Kieti, Shuksha Yugru. Ninja Kaze Shuksha Pita, you were Tsuki, and the Casodata, Chicasodam, and the Casa de Chuge, and the Casa Dile, and Jamba de Dewada Tendu, Jamba Shuksha Yugru. Tea all at dinner, and the tea Dewada Tendu, and because of the Dunga the Tendu, yeah, chickens, Laxam the Shuksha Yugru. Haxam Tendeji, Yavala dinner, and so the Chiga to the Gemma to the same way. That's sweet jet to the jet while charging cars. Oh, that's San Diego Batonda, and Duja come down Nova Samba, Baranya, what's the king of your San Diego Mamma to Tom, some sort of that, then you what did you do? And it Janju the same second again, La and Coco George Dagwata. Demand Tommy to some such. Demand Janju some can need a Kazala in there. That you got other than Jugi, Yondagi, Samba Samba, some temptation of Cocoda. And did talk about what? Did talk about it.
And so this reflection on the sufferings of cyclic existence is absolutely crucial in the endeavor that we have entered into. You know, that this is not something that this suffering, that all mother sentient beings along with ourselves are suffering, is not something that happens occasionally or once or twice, intermittently. It is a continuous kind of a saga of our residence in cyclic existence, and we have come to know of this the cyclic existence, suffering of cyclic existence through our readings of the graduated path teachings, where it is explained in depth, whether it's through the three sufferings and so on, that we, and through our understanding of what should occur, through our understanding of suffering in all its depth and in all its a consistency and kind of a all pervasiveness, is this sense of oneness with all other sentient beings, saying how I can't stand the fact that all other sentient beings have to undergo this continuous suffering. And so compassion is born. And from the development of that compassion, this special love, holding that all other sentient beings so closely, and from that, then we start to develop this sense of a personal responsibility through the exalted intention of really, I must do something about it. Now, what is it that I must do? I can't alone do much at the moment. What state of being is most effective to really do something meaningful for all sentient beings? And that is the state of enlightenment. And so we understand that having overcome all difficulties, having gained all good qualities, the state of enlightenment is the ultimate state that I must attain in order to ultimately benefit the sentient beings. And so the notion of the mind of enlightenment itself is stirred in our mind. And it's very, very important that we go through these kinds of meditations in order to cultivate that mind of enlightenment properly. It's not enough really just to take vows and to expect that mind of enlightenment to cultivate of its own accord. We need these contemplations, particularly on the connection between suffering and compassion.
어들 안타가는 제 된데가 동에 나이조가 심제다 안에 라운드 데메 된신 제와 자원이 매버지 하고 내줄 로가지 된데 말 라운드 저와 요 진짜로 막 심제 탐제 심제 되게 뭐다 디가 지금 디게 삼로당 초망분의 삼로당네 아니 대화도 동에 미도바 되네 삼로당 다 초망분의 삼로당도 아니 그 지금 가서래 아니 지금 가서래 지금 다 구조를 시키기로 와 구조를 시키기로 와 어디 되잖아 다 가자 지금 가서도 심지어는 동에게 나주대 차지 차와 하고 봤잖아 하고 배 토네 아니 셰베 토네 아니 뒤동에 나올 미스베 니지게 들려되는 대화도 된주가 잡았기에 아니 들려되는 학습기에 들려되는 아니 가서도 답변자 가서도 자주가 셈게지 자주가 셈게지 다 어디 다 교대데 차 육가세 다 디가 가세 피다와다 차상와 유에 속에 자주 셈데 피다와다 차상와다 아니 숙심 유바치 부주와 대주고 와 요거와 요거래 어디 아니 셈젤 미베 닝제 아니 투비아 오벌 니베 미괴게는 그 투비아 오병에 고소도 연대되게 되는 아니 다외다마 이제게 때마 혼자게 때마 가야 되죠 마도 탑도 안 터버지기 서 디체도다 계속 줘발라기 디체도 안 그저 주베 계속 주베 쇼 얘기 있어서 어디를 고바시에 요거로 와 어디를 참
When we do this reflection also, we must be very careful that there absolutely no discrimination in our mindset, that we are viewing all sentient beings, not just because we have some relation to them or some connection with them in this life, but in fact, the very fact of their being sentient beings should be the only category that qualifies them for our compassion and for this reflection. And that all sentient beings want happiness and do not want suffering is the only categorization that's necessary here. And so we must take all sentient beings into consideration, reflect on the kind of the way that all are inundated with suffering, having to overcome the difficulties and frustrations of cyclic existence again and again and again. And to sense that this reflection is to really stir the notion of doing something meaningful about it. And the most meaningful thing is to develop the mind of enlightenment. That in the face of such a variety of sufferings, that we want to wish all sentient beings to be free completely of them, to have all the causes to have happiness and all the causes of happiness, to develop that exalted intention of that intense sense of responsibility to do something about it ourselves, and thus to really set our goal at attaining that mind of enlightenment. And it's really, you know, the quality of such a reflection is going to lead to the quality of that mind of enlightenment itself. And that in approaching such a lofty goal, we really need that really sense of urgency about us, that we, you know, reflecting on all the sentient beings all around us and their suffering, and reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha, the Marindra, and the space in front, and these perfection of qualities, and having that triple kind of faceted faith of conviction of pure faith and of manifest faith, that, you know, we really have to take a massive stride forward in dedicating ourselves more wholeheartedly to attaining that mind of enlightenment.
Voilà, that was a danger. What the Semjala Mibi Nije, and to a Sanja Jumden Mibi, Debata Sanja to a Sanja Jumden Dente, and to so Sanja Tamjaka Tanis, tell me better. Deba, what the shed, what the shed, what the Scania, Takajaji, Cassandra, the Shuma Amatella, Tasuma Shungi Shavatella, Nichana, Tewachimber Lamja Rimba, Riba Shavala Jubet Chawata, and then Lamja Riba Sheva merchant. sabje niche ta tangbo de la somche ne choba sheba damchawa an kenjo kasa kenju singa sa zomba dowe gyumchen no chen sabje somche ta tangbo de zawa de tangbo de twasarwa 대신 제제 체제 공화 세제다 자가고라 그 차체 로스 어디자 나 니바데 가래 딱가자데 좀 담자와로 대신 로시 도전
쉐발라 담 쉐발라
좀 담자와체 다단다 당연히 무슨 소바 켄종시 좀바도 좀센 로스 다들어와
디레
어디라
And so it's this combination of the sense of compassion foremost in the mind for all sentient beings, the suffering that we and all other sentient beings are going through, and faith, the really strong sense of faith in the qualities of the enlightened being in front of us, who is the embodiment of all the Buddhas. And so we keep that in mind as we now approach the text, the actual work text. And we've been looking at these set of outlines, whereby talking about how we enter into an explanation on the stages of the path of the Mahayana, the ego. And that the second is the actual explanation of those stages. With regard to the first, there were three subheadings, you remember. One was the offering of homage, the promise to compose, and then this sense of the reasons for approaching the text with humility, that is the composition of the text with great humility and with delight. And we have covered the first two of those subheadings with the first verse itself. Respectfully, I prostrate myself to the Sagatas who are endowed with the Dharmakaya, as well as to their noble children, and to all who are worthy of veneration. Here I shall explain how to engage in the vows of the Buddha's children, the meaning of which I have condensed in accordance with the scriptures. And so now we're at the third of these subheadings, approaching the composition of the text with humility and with delight. And so this is covered in verses number 2 and 3. And so they read, "There is nothing here that has not been explained before, and I have no skill in the art of rhetoric. Therefore, lacking any intention to benefit others, I write this in order to acquaint it to my mind. For due to acquaintance with what is wholesome, the force of my faith may for a short while increase because of these words. If, however, these words are seen by others, equal in fortune to myself, it may be meaningful for them."
교수님의 산재 탐재게 아니 람카 가발라버레스 때어도 다 날 산재가 마소와 저 소야 그게 요 말봐 이 소야 이마이나다 아니 그람 해제 람 민다오스 레미가 요 날 대베 산재 다다 산재 하시마 마오바 산재 바 기회게 아니 다 저발 그랬을라 그래서 때어도 갈 마소와지 때 때바이나 다 내가야 돼 다운데 로와 어데 아니 that 가서 매스 다 주면 아니 지 제주 kimbo 아니 가서데 아니 대주 kimbi 제베 대주 대줄래 마대고 제가 셰케 매스 아니 이게 지야 배워라서 배 템조 쳐봐야 달라 매스 어디까지 이게 그 조다 그 아니 제 템조 조다 돼서 쳐봐야 갈 텐데 셰 매스 좀제 된이게 칠서 좀제 된데 이마이사 가자 셰게 저도 삼네 대주 잠반니 잠바 소제 누바 달라 매베 so ta kanja kaza shenge to la tsamba se ta de to de disungu yesere kasa ta de 다 가자 릭지게 된다라 삼르샤 마자자 아니 칙에 님제모 조다 야고 어텐데 개침부 쓰게 되들래 된데라 삼르탄 제메스 와 what 야메나 what 가르 개we 소라레 마소와치 what 사바지 돈도 되게 된데라 가 펜토에 CMS what 가자 다디 된데게 다도 콩게 다데 텐주디 아니 주자데 다술라 셰이스 라바 임바이나 아니 우네다는 나르사 대베산게 다다 상게서 마음바 상게바 주에 아니 장수 선배 줘발 컨테스라 고고도스 된데 된데 내가 다 수고 유스 돈다도지 다 가자 다디 또我就 다다 되어봐 남림도 나라 너그 된게 요봐 너 카보바 너 샤도와 너 지마체스 어디 너그 된게 요사리 다도 호데다나 콩기 된데 매베소로 나바 된게 요그 된데 캐주 매베소 된게 뭐서 된데 손이 댐조도 같이 돈다라 삼로 마다 와체 댐조다 시기 조다다 야나 식 사바지 돈다 사바지 거에 삼로 땅게도 해저디 너그 견샤네 된데지라 고코나 된데지 돈데 얘기는 말에 되게 셰 가야 메스 된다가 펜토 셰 메스 수고해서 어디 가자 되다 좀제 된이게 치르서 다 가사 현재 돈도 삼네 대저 좀 봐서 연구가 달 가사 셰스도 다들 된다왜 돈도 얘기는 식 년부터 된다 식이 좋다 야고 된다 돈도 얘기한다 다가리 땅날 상계다 아니 기부 담아서 마셔바지 셔바지 가 된다 돈도 얘기가 가사도 펴바지 가 CMS 그래서 속에 누가 달라 매배해서 라기 일라 거기 딱 얘들 점에 아니 소화지는 딱 가자 된대기 자주 쓰면 랍자들 소소 냠스 랑고자 라를 일라 검지 자외 체도서 가서 검지 자체에서 시와랑이다 데 아니 좀 봐이스 데야 란주라 가서 란주라 나유게 개와 공도 패다 란주라 유베 개와도 공도 패와 가서 개와 어서 공바데 개와 야 검지 자야다 공바다 관에 공도 패 치다 아니 다지에서 대소 판노 둘라 소베 가서 슉 다지에서 대소 판노 원래 딱 가자 파베 노트게 아니 냠레디가 소베 아니 슉삼 떡지 슈가 디 니베 떡지 아니 대주 거바 대다 기스 대주가 데스코바 인자 레시랑기 줄라 패와 주스타 레시 소수 줄라 아니 냠레디가 공배도 패 아니 데자 다다 껴봤다 디 소수가 패와 점마세 디 제라 딱 군에 전에게 주섬제 산제 탐제 거대 섹샤 군에 산에 전주서발 납제 군에도 가르레샤 데데가 돈도노게 란다 깨바냐바 다 소수다 데데 돈도 깨바냐바 신다 장서 신다 데데 다 데데게 깨바냐바 요바 이나니 아니 좀 데다 거바 데다 통나 데니 신도도 요베 다 데잘 타바 주레 타바 주베 칠 아니 디자바 예수스 어디리
And so here the author, Master Shantideva, is very careful to outline the kind of motivation with which he's writing this text. And he starts by saying there is nothing here that has not been explained before. He's clear to point out that there's nothing here that has not been explained before in the teachings of the conquerors and the kind of the treatises and so on that has come afterwards. There's nothing new here, in other words, he's saying. And so this is very, very important. Clearly saying that on the one hand, he's kind of making sure that this is not interpreted as something kind of a new path. I mean, he's saying, how could I say anything other than what has already been explained before, what the teachings of the Buddhas of the three times have been always. And so otherwise, as Genla pointed out, you could be writing any kind of new path. There could be all sorts of newfangled paths being composed. And so he's really making sure that it's clear that this is not the case, and that he understands the danger also of setting out like that, that everything that is here adheres to what has been taught before. And also that in saying that, for example, and I have no skill in the art of rhetoric, Here's pointing out that, I don't have these kind of like the mastery of words. I'm not that eloquent, and so on. And here he is making sure that those who are listening are not in any way, taken by the someone who has the art of speech, the art of eloquence, who can simply, hide wrong teachings or an exaggeration of the teachings in their, kind of really, how do you say, use of language. And so here is saying again that this is what I'm saying here is simply nothing more than what has been taught by the Buddhas of the three times, the past, present, and future, and that and this is kind of like the essence of what they have taught on the Bodhisattva's way and their the Bodhisattva's activities. This is simply their instruction, and again. I think this is related to the idea of the faults, the three faults of the pot. That the one who is listening has to have the right motivation, that their pot is neither stained nor holed nor turned upside down, and so that it's kind of like really setting their correct motivation here in saying that you're not going to get anything flashy here. I'm just going to give you the facts of the matter as has been explained before, and like the great beings have done here. I'm not doing this because I'm not even capable of doing anything anyway like that, he said. So he said, I'm lacking any intention to benefit others here. And I'm writing this primarily to benefit my own mind, to acquaint myself to the content of these teachings. And he's saying that for due to my acquaintance with what is wholesome, in other words, whatever little virtue that I've managed to accumulate from now, I want that to increase more and more and more, and that by the force of my faith, he said, and my faith and the other what are called the treasures of the Arya beings, whatever kind of element of those great qualities I have managed to assimilate up to now may they all increase more and more by the use of these words. And if it so happens with others who are equal in merit, in fortune to myself, who read this and who see these words, that my hope is that maybe they will gain some benefit too. They will find it meaningful.
아니 댐저 캐바다 아니 셴게 산제다 아니 기부 담바스 마템 바체 갈에 셰메소 담바제 켄중와 소소 켄중와서 소소를 세자 윤데 매바도 스땡기도 와 덴데게 아니 데 누가 매바소지 켄중와서 그러다 덴데체 이네 돈다 쪼디 지금 칠을 개쳐 돈다를 삼로 마다겠다 아니 직 사바지 가르치가 덴데질라 삼로 단데게 제는 대줄라 펜토아지 갈에 셰메소 요르바다 다 어디 소리야? 아니 지금 공급대 된데 소리에 대한 소소 개취주 때 딱간에 심지어 탐자를 펴매쳐도 소소 일을 계속 좀 검지 잡고라. 귤이 깨받지 모르와. 아니 대체부터 아니 되네 라다 깨받았다. 소소 난신게 3부 단계 타입에 맞게 심지어 탐자를 펴받지 외쳐도 계속 좀 라기 인서 3부 단계 술라 아니 다 통나 파도 요구를 해수고요. 맞다. 판도 요구를 해수고라. 어디서 안다 어디
So at the heart of these verses, of course, is this expression of humility that the author, Master Shantideva, is pointing out. Look at, I'm not trying to say something fresh and new here. This is only really what has already been laid out by the Buddhas of the three times and the holy beings of the past. But he's also saying here that, don't be expecting to be impressed with the eloquence and new things here, that this is not going to happen. I'm going to be very disciplined in what I'm going to say, that it's going to be by the book, in other words, and that, it's in primarily, yes, to benefit myself. But if there are those there who are of, equal fortune to myself, who are dedicated to the Bodhisattva path themselves, if they read what I have written and take it to heart, maybe it can be meaningful for them as well. I hope that it will be beneficial for them.
진짜 나랑 쪽에 아니다 공부 가서 그 공부를 요바듯이 소소 디테일 수바지지 디테일 수바지 게티 대다 돌아 대교로서 게티 대다 돌아 대교로 날 소소 수바지 그러다
양가겠나?
공부 전에 게티 대다 돌아다 소소 그 디자인 대다 돌아 아니 대교 대줄 펜 토그를 했으면 좋아 게티 대다 돌아 대교로서 다 소소 디날 수바지 식담 샤바스 내주 사바고에 대자살라 알소 디날 맞추바체 게티 대다 통나 저희죠 디날 추바체
And so again, I'm saying that we should take from this ourselves that this is very much related to how we should approach this text as well. That again, nothing hoping for that which is so eloquent and intriguing. No. But that we may, and that's the key line there, is that if we are in any way equal in fortune, that we may find something meaningful. And Shantideva was pointing that out, that please look for what is meaningful here in what is being read, what is being composed.
가서 책들아 지대 대다 통나 되는 교사다 지대스는 개대서 돈다 찍어 봐 지대 대다 통나 되는 거다 된저다 책장 많이 맞자 사바 가르쳐 된데다 돈아 맞지 된다 코라라 돈도 니가 저 여봐 이는 디토나 니들 돈다 요수고요 봐 돈다 띠 요스 디 된다 돈도 니가 저 된다 돈도 주고 사 소소 디나 수바체
And so really, again, I'm saying it's more of the very pointed point that is being made here, really. And so, yes, if you consider yourself equal in fortune in that sense, and that you have the good fortune, in other words, to read this text, then you are charged with trying to find meaning in it, a meaning that will actually make a difference in your life.
다가제도 대발로서 파베 노트 뉴스인데 파베 노트스인데 대바제 수점제 퇴바제 동화제 아니 뭐자 셔바제 태요바제 싫어 뒤뒤들 파베 노트 뉴스를 와
that this mention of the seven treasures of the Aryas, their particular emphasis in behavior, begins with faith. Then there's moral discipline, learning, generosity, a sense of shame with regard to their own levels of behavior, and a dread of blame, considering what other people might think of their behavior. And seven is wisdom.
다 대바스긴들라 다 간자 지금 몽대 기자 말이에요. 금세 시험에 대와 금세 학원이 아니 텔미베 대바기 가서 자주 셈베 대바 남주 지금 대바래 블라인패드 말에 남주 지금 금세 시에 아니 잡된 거 참아 유매 디게 대배 뭐처럼 터네 어느 다 대바지 잖아 다 교함에 맞대 뭐 대화시켜 가서 대바 중으로 왔다 어떤 데 대바 그러나 산계를 미베 대바 당고 산계에서 야고 신고로 와 산계 야고 신 최 야고 신 견된 야고 신네 아니 컨텐츠를 쓰기도 이 제바 있는 판바 가르도 마제바 있는 네바 가르도 안 디게 찾아 셔봐 아니 다간 이제 켈레 겨왕같이 라소마 렌데 라소마 다간 생기 가서렴 타바다 탐제 잡아 라소마 다 디게 가자 이체니 그 델라 대바께 뭐 여기 내주 심에 토네 왔다 대바께도 대바스로 아니 수점도 단 거죠 덴데기 가서 산제 고마 토마라 가리 근내고도 네 아니 가르스 까고래 까에도 수점스기로 왔다 수점스 디스기로 와 로아 아니 퇴바다 디쳐도 퇴바 맞잖아 내수 차상 신고 말아 아니 퇴바치에 만호 왔지라 퇴바치에 아니 동화스도 아니 다 가자 지금 가서다 로다 동화스도 다 가자 산세가 동화 용거래라 다가 최게 동거였다 최저 산세게 아니 샬라 페베초다 집바타웨라 수바티게 들어왔다 그거들이셔 아니 뭐자 셔봐 어따 가자 지금 랑 김선도 저는 뭐 사시야다 마티가 지금 요나 랑 김선도 뭐 사시야 체스도 어따 셴 김선도 어따 근데 제가 있는 아니 셴 체기를 했어요 셴 김선도 아니 태유 셰 추에 아니 다가는 셰라라 딱 가자 군조베 셰라다 돈다베 셰라 뭐 내주 줘발라 아니 셰라면은 용해 거라면서 아니 군조게 지단내다 세제 남자 조당이 시럽대 신고를 직접 조당 주다 제비 조당 이게 신고를라 아니 타도데 아니 돈답에 시럽대 신고고 요서 다 되게 신배 돈에 아니 타버 탐지 잡아 두고 열봐
And so running through these 7 Arya treasures in a little more detail. First, faith, when it's mentioned here, is in no way related to blind faith, but a faith that must be founded on reasoning. And that this is so important. And that this is the kind of only faith that is really considered here. And in terms of establishing the mind of enlightenment, that is to be regarded as being fully supported by reasoning. And as a foundation of that. And so this is something that we must train our minds into, that the very notion of enlightenment itself, or Buddhahood itself, to kind of see that is underpinned by reasonable connection between cause and effect instructions. And so this goes for all the elements of the path, be they past and future lives, and refuge, and the law of cause and effect. And so one must gain the kind of habit of seeing the actuality of reality as much as we possibly can, not what is based on wants and don't wants and so on, but what is actually occurring, and to really make sure that all of our actions are informed through this kind of reasoning. And so the second is ethical conduct, and again, here it's related to anything that might act as a fault or a harm or an obstacle to our development of that mind of enlightenment and the attainment of enlightenment itself. So it's in the process of stopping anything that could be an obstacle there. Learning is again self-explanatory, that we need to gain the wisdom arising from learning, and that again to make sure that that learning is unmistaken in what we're trying to assimilate. And the fourth there is generosity. Again, we can split this into the generosity of giving material items, of giving protection, and of course the ultimate is giving of dharma. And then the fifth of the sense of shame, of really keeping control over our own behavior based on what standard of ethical conduct we have set for ourselves. And then the sixth, the dread of blame, is really simply just consideration of what others think, and then make sure we have control over our behavior in company like that, because of our consideration for others. And then wisdom, the seventh, and the most important, of course, being both conventional and ultimate wisdom, of gaining a good working knowledge of conventional wisdom, and ultimately then to being able to see that the foundation point for entering into the examination or analysis of ultimate wisdom.
What is it? That the Ganga Goela, share up the Ketchumber, share up the Mabayina, and so the Sudum Sungu Yos Lava in a Sudum de and a new regulatory Naga Yorwa. And Deva Kigos and a Devadi and double Lobal to a Nagayre. And a Toba Chigos a Toba the Lobal to a Nagayre. Toa Chigos a Pemba to go as a Pemba the Lobal to a Nagayre. And then was the test there, Lobal to because share up in Namjumana, that share up the sword, the key to the one.
And so wisdom is absolutely key here, and the most important, and in the fulcrum around which all of the other qualities revolve. Excuse me. Because we can see without wisdom, all the others are going to be compromised. Ethics will be incomplete and mistaken. That faith as well, we may have the wrong objects of faith and have compromised our learning, of course. And the others, the generosity, that sense of shame, and that sense of the dread of blame, and so on, will be mistaken with regard to how we actually apply those particular qualities when we don't have the requisite wisdom.
다 동안에 노래 먹고 연구도 아니 뭐 차야 될래 연구도 왔다 그래 가지고 지단 따대도 뭐 차야 될래 뭐차 먹어서 뭐차 거애들 마사 거기 싫어 맞다.
Yeah, I think it's all too clear again. I was saying in regard to that, when we need to question whether or not we have sufficient wisdom, because we can see all too often that our ethics is not up to scratch because of that lack of wisdom. That our faith as well is kind of like compromised, misdirected, and our learning, of course, is constantly compromised, and that the generosity again is kind of like incomplete and mistaken at times, and particularly these qualities of looking after a sense of shame. We kind of have sometimes a sense of shame about what we needn't have shame about, and then we have no shame about what we need to have shame about, and that shows that we are lacking in wisdom to be able to discern what is the correct attitude to adopt there.
어디 정도 가서 셔럽 남주 마다 셔럽 남주 당겨요나 셔럽들에다 가자 군조비 셔럽 donda be shara namju tangso na gawa yimba machuwa yongtunguru wa shirab gaza pitawa yuge tsuge deba pitawa tsutin pitawa toba pitawa anu waza sheba pitawa chayuba pitawa diga yongtunguru wa an diga shirab pitawa yonguru wa ta yonguru wa ta shirab pitawa kechishuru sha.
So it's really something that we need to emphasize, this development of both the conventional aspect of wisdom and the ultimate aspect of wisdom, and that it's really the quality of all other aspects of this faith and the ethics, the generosity, shame, and so on, and consideration for others. All of that quality depends on the quality of wisdom. And so it's very, very important that we make sure that all of our other actions are imbued with the best wisdom that we can muster at the moment, at that time.
당연히 제 뒤에서는 지금도 가서 배는 것도 지금 가서도 강사를 맞대 쳐라 되었어. 강사 중대도 세계 강사도 소리 이 중세 개첨부 말이야. 개첨부 코랑이 셰드 가르샤. 또 다죠 봐. 셰드 가르시도. 다 셰드래 장도다 녀도니 용거래. 아니 장도래 녀도니 개쳐왔다 야. 다 녀베 되는데 아니 가서도 가서다 지금 로이 녀바 지구 위에서 녀바 닦아져야 아니 지금 옹비 셰발라 녀바 된다 아니 이실라 녀바 된 일이나네 이실라 녀바 된 다이치 뭐다 강사 경제 마대자 출을 경제 지구에서 코레 셰드 경제 지구에서 셰드를 장도는 녀도 니용거래서 진짜 녀도를 따고래서 녀도들 남셰다 이신이를 때문에 용거래서 아니 남셰 가서 닦아서 옹비셰발을 때문에 아니 이시 그때라 아니 녀바 가서 들래 닦아서 녀도 차치고 그래서 안 되게 뭐다 저기 다 되게 다 되게 대대체만 아니 보유근에서 맞추고 그것도 와 어떻게
And so in this search for the actuality of any situation, one tactic is really to adopt the way in which we interpret what other people are communicating to us. And so in that light, it's very important that we do not simply consider the person, the form of the person in front of us, but actually really listen to what they say. And that we don't just listen to what they say, but we're able to make sure that we take from that not just the interpretative meaning, but the definitive meaning. And the most important is to adhere to the definitive meaning of what is being said. And in terms of how we interpret not just interpret our reality through our physical senses, what we hear, see, or touch, smell, and so on, but that should be supplanted by how we interpret that information from our mind sense power. And that is kind of something that supplants anything we interpret otherwise. And so here is how we kind of really are taking in all the information of our reality, of our day-to-day reality. Simply some skills that we need to adopt in order to give ourselves the best chance of getting the actual reality, the actuality of any given situation.
다 또바시스 또 바시스의 가자마도 출렸대 안 출렸다는 이유를 얘들 나중에 이신요를 이시를 되었어 왔다가 또 어떻게 소다지 주고요로 어떻게 다 어떻게 야 다다다
So yeah, so I say not relying on the person, but relying on the Dharma, not relying on what was said, but what is definitive. Oh, sorry, not relying on the person, but what they're actually telling us, what they're actually saying, and not relying on what is just said, but what is definitive with regard to that, and not relying on just our sensual interpretation, but what is actually our mental interpretation of what's going on.
la nibu lambe chirkuata nibu chidalebe chusheba wo chimta sabche niche tangbo danjo la nibu lambe namba kuate la ta kancha danjo deni nyeba shindo ka kibe dondo toba joba la kete de la pamba majona chide yanda joba kala kurus.
So now we're moving on, and the next main outline states the actual explanation of the stages of the path. And this has two subheadings now, starting with the how to take the essence of this life of freedoms and endowments. An exhortation or an inspiration to take the essence of this life of freedoms and endowments. And the second is the how we actually take that essence. And the verse reads, and this is verse number 4, leisure and endowment are very hard to find. And since they accomplish what is meaningful for humans, if I do not take advantage of them now, how will such a perfect opportunity come about again?
탐제 겸바 주고래스도 다 탐제 겸바 주발라다 지금 가서도 다 지금 가서도 연구 장세 양담에 나와서结果에 다가는 이제 파베 가서도 다 가서도 파노 둘을 납고 요래 다가는 신게 지 사주 람간 납고 다 디게 제발라 나라도 다 촌에 귀매적인 람질을 줘야 돼 디게 내주 시험바 제발라 남주 매발 되게 셔랍 개쳐버려서 셔랍 매발 탑요 말아 다 나라도 좋아 리투가 나네 좋아 리투가 나네 다 셔랍 야제 줘야 그거 약시도 뭐 미르 되더라도 미르 되더라도 다리 다 이내 미르 되 나로래 된저고 류대 소저 많이 봐이나 아니 되게 돼 로를 차두고 뭐 도와 로를 차도 딜라 지금 도나 떼두고 뭐 도와 같이 된저고 류대 좋아 이봐이나 아니 코르지 개왕함에게 바자다 슈그 떡게 아니 코딜라 도나 떼지 요거 도와 되면은 세디게 아니 디기 남주 건가 세디 디기 조야를 괜찮아 배주다네 지가서 땡기 디기 주에서도 로라고 쇼두고 뭐 도와 진짜 안데데 쇼투에게 류대 개발지 고도 와 어디 수고였다
So here saying in the goal on the goal to attaining the omniscient state of enlightenment, we need to be able to accomplish all the different stages of that path, be it as mentioned just now, the 7 area treasures, the different elements of the path, the paths and grounds and so on. We need to kind of know what it is we need to do. And therefore, again, as we just mentioned, wisdom is absolutely paramount. And so it's saying that, to begin with, that of all the 6 realms of existence, that you be born as a human is the best possible birth to be able to avail of that wisdom, of the wisdom necessary to know what it is to do to attain that state of enlightenment. And so it's very important that when we talk about this idea of having this wisdom, this human rebirth of leisures and endowments, that we are talking about, that somebody who has the imprints from previous life, to kind of have them awakened in this life, to be able to focus on what is most important. And otherwise, one becomes simply absorbed. The mind becomes absorbed into just chasing the happiness of this life. And so it's kind of like important to recognize that what is important about having such a rare opportunity.
그래. 답변자 아니 로다 변에 지다 세디 디게 고래 개와 치매 디게로 땡기 디게 고고 요래 고에 자냐래 얘나야 세디 지게 쳐도 땡기 디게로 뇌고도나 딱고 시랍 마당 와 시랍 당기면 와 로아 세디 디게 디 쳐도 땡기 디게로 뇌고도나 딱고 시랍 넣어도 그러 다 세디 디게 고래라 땡기 디게 고래 다 디게 니가 아니 거 가서라다 편집 내가 개 말이야 디기 강가 가서래 고구 요래 아니 세디 디기 두배 가네 치매 디기를 많이 봐가 치게 두매 디기 두투와 좋아 이나다다 다 아니 땡기 디기 두투와 저거 딱고 되게 여러 이나야 셰라 마당에 오기 아니 거 너대와 정보도 와 너대와 정보도 와 아니 세디 디기 좀 치게 치매 디기 좀 딱고 라고 똥바 똥장지 차 되기도 와 똥바 똥자죠 다 된대 요알라 같이 된적을 리대 소리 많이 봐 이나 타베도 어때 된적을 리대 다가 용구요 말고 딱고 줄래 되는 용구도 다저 된적 차에 된데 신도 니와 가스다 된적 차 대화께다 저바 차 리대데 MC도 니와 가보랬지 주 로다 가자데 교육거는 니와 고백거는 니와 칼에 딱대거는 니가 어디를 남리는 소 어떻게 고바 실전에 다 요새 질 대자마 다 좀제 미류 좀 토발라야 아니 지금 수점 다 수점이 시대전을 내고 수점 속에다 미게 주먹을 수점 연구를 했다 한 뒤에 안에 또 속저 바위 속저 바위 수점다 또래 왔다 간자 니마 찍자 지금 아니 속저 바위 수점 송아지 매봐 이나 아니 밀리 짱바지야 톱투에 요 맞다 톱투에 요 말이야 다 된저 밀리다 가봐 요 왔다 밀리 짱바지 딱 간자 지금 세트 죽으면도 삼로 마다게 된적을 리데 마상기게 밀루시 렘발레 니마 마달레 니마 지금 수중 송아지 매베다 용투야 관에 수중 송아는 뭐하지 매베다 용투야 관에 용도 왔는데 딱 이제 된적을 리데 되잖아 대 중세 에치 밀루 좀 토발아야 수중 나래 쏘다 되다 쏘쏘 쏘리 개쳐와 진짜 딱 이제 송아지만은 용도고 요 말이 어떤지 좋아 개발 된적 상에 안 된 개발제 토발아 아니 수중 넘바다 시조 제소 받진주고 도와지 물론 지만매가 참대와 수주 권에다 기주고고요 다 근데 이제 교리에는 공부 이마이자 거면 저부 된저 참여다 그래서 대토바 시도 거면 지로다 공부 차대부터 왔어 대체 다 좀대들에 이마자 기비 되되 어서 기비 되베도 아니 것도 하며 고마도 그것도다 아니 녀래 타바다 탐지 체험바 줍네베 대 캐바제 토바 주발라 대토베 유대 다 근데 톱 가고도 왔다 다다 톱 대도 와톱 대베 뒤대도 촐라마다 저 뒤대를 게데 다 치와 미다 버서지 그네다 다 가자 지 가서라 다 다도 톱 대베 촐라마다 왔잖아 다 가자 지 가서라 다톱 가고데 다다 톱아데 톱아데 규르고 마대바 치와 녀바 남치 녀메 치외서 최마도 가야 미페바 되게데 아니 게 아니 그네 다 지금 대 개발전이 딜라다 치마 폐제게 평범 두토바지 마주마이나 아니 시소 된데 예데 달래라고 말이야서 하고에 개청부 이마인사 치마인사 아니 디 주들 카부 요레스 안데네 이바 다도 토바디 아니 지금 다 간자저 돈다 대바체데 개청부레스다 미지 니불레 도바체데 개청부레스 와다 쿠와 지금도
And so So yes, of course, here one is not how to say advising to avoid the happiness of this life. That indeed, we have the happiness of this life to consider, the happiness of next life to consider, the definite happiness beyond that to try to consider. Now, what we must try to ensure is that the happiness that we do enjoy in this life does not in any way conflict with our aspirations to experience happiness in the future or definite happiness. And so this is so important. And this is where wisdom comes in. We must be able to employ wisdom to dictate the kind of actions that we engage in order to experience happiness in this life, fair enough. But such a happiness that doesn't in any way compromise our chances of happiness in the future, and certainly definite happiness. And so this is what's important here. And it's saying that, this is not something that is accomplished by just a human life on its own, but it is at kind of it is that which is really the birthright of somebody who attains a precious human rebirth with those leisures and with those endowments. And that, when we talk about what's necessary as causes to bring about these this kind of result, we can say that just to merely gain a human life, one needs to adopt a quality of ethics, particularly to avoid the ethics of killing, any kind of killing. And that alone can, if we kind of really look after such ethics, we may be able to attain a human life. But to attain the special basis of a human life of leisure and endowment, we need to have a much more complex set of causes. And first of all, it's the perfect ethical conduct that is accompanied by the practices of ethics and the other qualities, and to make stainless aspirational prayers directed at that goal. And so this is what's necessary. And so it's really pointing out here that this is rare. This is something that's not easy to come about. And in the Lam graduated path teachings, it talks about it being rare in terms of the causes necessary to bring it about. It's rare in terms of its nature and so on, and it's rare in terms of the kind of examples that are used to describe it. And here it's saying the same thing. These causes are very difficult to bring about. Therefore, it stands to reason that the result of them, of this fully qualified life of leisure and endowment, is also extremely rare. And so, having attained it, then there is a certain quality of urgency and care that must be cultivated to make the most of it. And it's saying once any being, wishes to attain this life of a positive human rebirth of a human being or a celestial being, or going on to definite goodness of the attainment of liberation or the omniscient state of enlightenment, then they have that capacity based on this extraordinary basis. And that here, we need to kind of understand, we can be kind of inspired to take the essence here due to contemplations on death, impermanence in the form of death, for example. That yes, it's beautiful and very joyful to know that we have a precious human rebirth as described, but we know that death is definite, that the time of death is indefinite, and that the only thing that's going to be of benefit to us at that time of death is our familiarity with the path. And so it's very important that we use this as an inspiration to thereafter kind of really focus the mind and say, okay, I know the potential I have here. I must not waste that potential, because if I do, as stated in the verse, how will such a perfect opportunity come about again? And so what is really being said here, the second half of that verse, is to recognize the rarity of what you have, the meaning fullness of what you have, and to take the essence of this precious human rebirth.
Yeah, what the result that what is it? That can just the neg and the Tenjok Lieutenant, that can just the neg Casoleta, Chig Cora Casoya. Mojo Tanda or Casola Chig. Mojo Nabu, Naratu took Neta Shamash, oh, Pugu, Tapu Chatter, oh, that Pamada Pada Machuna and Tapu Chavis now, the Nemara, Michavis now, the Nemar, the Jablola. The Jablola, the day Yogi to Manguchi, the Milu, the Yogi to Manguchi, that you get to the number of sheets of that, and to the number of sheets of Paget Molantimami, but some Chan, what that to want that, to want that, the Takanjachi, Shebache, and the Shebetone, what that Tenjok did, Ninguji Lemato by Yina, and Namchina, Tenjok Lieutenant, I've never chatted with till a pebble to Madura, and it called leg as a steguna, and the ten and then was Zotu, and she's a young and the young Jumatuna Yogumarwa. And she the other, and then Jutu Mena, and it's a Chamatina, she Rewahaya Yomata. Rewahaya, Mijubeta, Jugumeva Yinsa, or that they get the Shem, they get the Shema Jenna, they get the Shema Jenata, Nibul let up to check with that Nibul less at that, so that you get my Junju Chimbo Masu and then Jogu Lieutenant to get the Masu on the Takaja, don't that thought the Junju Nasu to get it. Yamne Chavani, you will never chat the Yosa, that didn't you will learn to the Kumachi Yormata. Kumachin, that was that, not so that the cook up the Nuno does. And that the cook up Nuno, the other cook up Yetabarita, and cook up tea. And that better during the social lava, you're sending social lava Yoma. Sending social lava Yoma, sending Karioma Kayoma, sending water that the Quanta Karioma, the social lava Yoma. We need to the natural, that we need to the Shimbetone. And then because that she was practically necessary. We need to shimba that Takarchi was that under the social lava that is and Tikasota because the judges and Bejoba social Mebani Yore, Meba Yobati, and then go to Gordas, and then go Matsuina, and Jella said the Jella. When I was another Chashiko, oh, Tawachama chicken, Lochama chicken, Chashimabuku, Yorda, in a Chashi the social lava Yomare. Tata Milich and Dead and Lamlu didn't swear. Locha mother Taju also the Tundu again, Colorado, you could get the machete to Maris. Never the dish. That is to get around to get shave at 20, Takacha, Danjola, Nibble number two. Caso Takaja learn to pass the that catch about it. What did
So here, the author here, Master Shantideva, is really exhorting us to really consider this attainment of precious human rebirth extremely well, and to look into the causes again. Like it's like normally when a child is born, the parents have this sort of assumption, though, that yes, this child has come from this sperm and egg combination, and that's the end of it. But behind that, of course, we must start to consider all of the causes that were accumulated by that child in a previous life, laying down those imprints of perfect ethical conduct, of engaging in practices of generosity and the other perfections, and of those stainless aspirational prayers directed at such a rebirth. And that, there's this complex collection of imprints, causes that must come together to bring this about. And so it kind of like this then becomes something which is really should be cherished as a precious human rebirth, as something, the basis for which we can really fulfill such great potential. And that very, very important that to know this and to not take it for granted in any way, but rather to really direct the life towards taking the essence of that life, and saying that that if we don't, if we just take it for granted, if we are very slack in our approach, that opportunity will not arise again in any time soon. And that karma that brought it about, of course, will be exhausted in this life. And so it's that we might gain such an opportunity again in the future is unlikely. And if we waste it in this life, then we can have no hope of attaining such a life in the future. And so again, it's that exhortation from Master Shantideva to take the essence of this life. And the context of the Bodhisattva's way of life is that exhortation to do the best you can. And the best you can is to do whatever you can to develop that mind of enlightenment. And he's saying, that we have such few opportunities to be able to dedicate ourselves towards this. And that the window of opportunity also is so narrow. That you might be celebrating the precious human rebirth in the morning, but that opportunity might be completely gone in the evening, and that when we do lose that opportunity and we die and enter another rebirth, it may be that as an animal wearing horns, where we have no opportunity to fulfill our potential. And so he's saying, don't waste time. Start now. Get into it. Do not procrastinate by thinking, oh, yes, I will dedicate myself a little later on. I just have all these plans that I need to finish. No, you need to understand what the essence means and to take that essence now and don't delay.
다 고추 세데 지금 잡아 쏘고야다 아니 쏘고야다 저렇게 가야 말해 고추 세데 딱 랑게 아니 지금 가서데 놈의 쳐 되게데 아니 지금 놈의 이바도 뭐처럼 맞게 탑지치 아니 랑전전 되게데 아니 전쟁이 껴 통하다는 현진이 깨버지 그 단다 소소 대 다가랑 갈 때네 대 다가랑 갈 때네 아니 제토의 유견지 그래도 딱 지금요 말이면도 제토의 유견지 그러와 아니 근데 제거래 배 가져오래 딱 가져져 나도 배제 된줄 알아 근데 제거래 차서지 딱 가져져 쿠킹 북 서버를 와다 칼라 근데 속으로 쿠킹 북이도 와 쿠킹 북 서버에 칼라 소단 람비도 와 와다 진능 시전 차서 때 직사도 와 당가라 저거 딱 소소 배주 마다나 딱 다가려면도 근데 제거에서 와다들 문에 전에 장고 셔봐이나 당가라 저 녀몽의 상황도 좀 아니 저거 된데게 아니 저 가서 건배 온게 다 아니 다가는 시 그다 가서래 다가자 가서 레로그 온게 하드가 요르면도 문에 전에 배주지 저기나 다디 봐도 봤다 아니 저기 투에 매겐데도 싸워지는 매되겠지 투에 유에 되게 제 유에 되게 딱 아주 가리 노리셔 나라도 맞지네 지기 라면 맞지네 대봐 레진데 시로 다가자 레로 온게 다가라 그 하대 버다 레로데 다 그저 숙초다 다이데 그래서 제국도 한 어디든 그 이제 뭐죠 당아 참되고요 지제 다다 뒤지 뭐 이렇게 좀 말 잠지 자주고 샘스다 돈이 또 배실어서 같이 위내 거면 유겠지 랑게 루다 샘 가봐 유나 다가라는 거면 유 되겠지 아니 들라 조소야 가야 매 되겠지 조소야 가야 매 되겠지 왔다 가자 다가라는 유 되겠지 이 뭐도 뭐 뭐트네 아니 최 제스게데 랑제제 숙체도 중다 현지제 숙체도 다야 아니 랑게 녀몽 쳐도 나한테 녀몽을 쳐도 되거든 이 괜히 봐 현지 숙체도 다야 아니 가서 녀몽게 아니 저 가서 예부 되게 숙체도 다야 어떤 다가라래도 딜레 규칙 뭐 요구모도 가야 요구모도 안 다가니 좀 지가서도 게임 막고 신고모도 가야 기절하면 와 다가라 되게지 아니 소소를 제요와도 뭐트베 터네 어디를 제리도 때문에 답변은 가서 지금 배를 찾아가는 거죠. 배를 지금 강에 쳐도 배를 내가 쇼와 연구 열에 송을 약고 마중와 연구 열에 내수 먹고 연구 열에 되게 되건가 강에 쳐도 되게 되건가 아니 집 가서래 집 가서 잠지 잠비고 생게 아니 냠내 나라 주투야지 뭐다 생게 되게 강에 쳐와 먹고 열 되게 내가 녀대 고쳐 봐쇼 삼삼 지야지 다가랑 돈에 코다 대조가 있는 내두고 와. 내가 섬도 기본에 디게를 정거에 대해서 다 디게래 디 레선고 사회 제보래 군족을 지나버래 아니 디게 셈제 탐자라 되는 시 중앙쇼 섬도 야 야 다가는 시기 지가서네 대조가 님고 렌도 도와 다 대조가 너 소도 대가라 대 조선 가야 매버 ton에 지에 도와 다가도 삼로 고급스 마스 그 내주지를 도와 네 되게 아니 타바다 탑지 캐버 고발로 고아치 나 기부 모두 나 내가 쇼서 나 강에 또 스트레스 많이 받잖아 내가 쇼 내가 쇼가 강에 가서 녜티 고쳐 마쇼 서도 어디에 살로 다 되나 장기 다다 내가 쇼는 셈 마치 뭐 이게 돼 매바차 딜라 때네 한 최첨부 제 주투와 이거도
So this, of this exhortation to take the essence, to start now, do not waste time, get into it now. It's saying how can we do that? Is that such a complicated business that it would require a tremendous amount of planning and preparation? No. Do we have to become a monk or a nun in order to be able to do that? No. This is not necessary, and that we need to simply to really examine our mental affliction in general, and in particular, the degree to which we are influenced by our particular mental afflictions, and to be able to recognize these mental afflictions and to be able to put into place antidotes to stop, overcome, pacify the influence that those mental afflictions have over us. And we need to kind of look into the way that we are dominated by this self-cherishing attitude, to reduce that influence as much as we possibly can, and to give over that energy to being able to cherish others, and the reasoning behind why we need to cherish others, why others are more important. And this is what we need to do. And we need to be able to do it now, not to consider that we have to get such and such thing into place and all of this sorted out beforehand, and then I'll be able to dedicate my life towards it. No, again, I'm saying it's like you have the ultimate cookbook and all the ingredients are outlined there. You have them all. You can really cook the meal of a meaningful life. No problem. You have all that you need, and that here, to really kind of honestly speak here, it's a question of understanding the quality of your mental afflictions and how habituated we are to thinking in a certain way. And one of those mental afflictions is laziness itself. And the different types of laziness, of being so attached to busyness and so on. And this is the kind of thing that really robs us of our potential and robs our opportunity. And so here, we need to kind of recognize something like the influence of laziness in our lives, and to reduce that influence as much as we possibly can, so that we are more prone to act in the here and now. And that this doesn't kind of require to say, oh, I need to do retreat, I need to get away, I need to be able to have all these conditions. No, that's again not necessary. To understand that all the tools and ingredients for being able to transform your mind are with you here and now, and they don't cost anything. You don't have to pay anything to be able to apply this. So say now I'm going to really pay far more attention in all of what occurs to me, good, bad, or indifferent, and to see how I can apply the teachings on reducing self-cherishing and really increasing my cherishing of others, and reducing the influence of mental affliction over me, and being able to free my mind up like that. So it's whether whatever problems you have, if you lost your job, if you've encountered other difficulties, and so on, don't sink into a kind of a self-cherishing depression because of those, but actually to see these problems as opportunity, to take these problems onto the path and say, here, I can really feel the difficulty of this problem. Empathize with all others who have similar lost their jobs or have other similar issues, and may their suffering ripen upon me now. May I be able to really empathize and take on their sad feelings and take it on for myself, and to kind of dedicate whatever version of virtue that you have for yourself to benefit those as well. And so kind of saying, may these and say anything good happening to you, and really recognize that as like a blessing of the three jewels, and to kind of celebrate that, of course, rejoice in that, but also to see it as an opportunity to increase and to again repeat the causes that brought that about, and to kind of and so they would be virtues, obviously, going into really kind of engaging in that. So need to reflect on the fact of this task of taking the essence of a precious human rebirth is something that is available to us now in the seat that we are sitting on now. It doesn't require a special set of circumstances to get to initiate it, and that we can proceed at no cost. We can carry on and engage and integrate these teachings into our lives readily. We just have to have the right attitude and the right mindset.
어디 안타가 생겨 가서 나가는 생겨 가서 다 딜레 때네 아니 소주 지금 소주 되게 생기 동에 당돌래도 아니 소주 동에데 같이 매우 차원의 시대 삼록 돈에 매우 차원에 어다 되죠도 아니 랑게 삼의 시대 용거래 딜레 때네 랑게 이몬 시스템도 약고 대도 그래 아니 나사 용가 용거래 딜레 때네 아니 밀라 기대셰네 삼록 땅에 남주 야가 요래 딜레 때네 배나 내가 쇼마다 내가 야가 라이 그래와 요래 총 약고 마중안에 저마 총 야가 제토에게 남주 리바 사바니 그래 아니 학교도 밀라 강에 채워도 강에 채바 딜라 때네 롭총 먹고 싶을 랭겨래 딜라 때네 저마 강에 셋업게 아니 내수 먹고지다 셰토 그래 가서나 소수가 셈데 시대 네트워크나 셈 시대 네바다 남주 배주 땅도 그래 다셈 시대마다 남주 배주 땅도 그래 아니 강에 갈라 강에 채바 속으로 와 강에 채바 속으로 와 다가자 자주 생고 냠네데 제바 이나 가서라 땡기 띠기게 아니 가서데 다 주비에게 주의바 인데 체디게 동에야 랑주고 매바 차주에 중국으로 랑주고 매바 차주에 그래서 체디게 동에 망자다 가서 삼로 땅 마시면 온 거요 자주 셈때 아니 삼로 땅에게 딱 개보다 버려 개보다 버려 인데 아니 그 내주 청가 중가 건가 쓰겠네 셔그로 와 왔다 된다래 왔던데 그래서
So to consider also that when we become accustomed to being able to deal with our own problems and all sufferings in this way, in such a very helpful and comprehensive and courageous way, and indeed also the suffering of others and taking on that from ourselves, that it can very much not only reduce the feeling of suffering for ourselves, but indeed even eradicate the unwantedness of our own suffering. And that goes to too, helping in times we have illness and sickness and so on as well. And that to kind of say that if we have lost a job, maybe to think in the future I will get a better job, and and so it's all about when we are familiarizing ourselves to being able to handle the problems of life. We are also training in being able to help others in their problems in life as well. It's the best training in a way. And so this is very, very important that we maintain that sense of peace of mind to best be able to use our own intelligence in these matters, and to recognize that when we don't have peace of mind, that is going to hamper our use of intelligence in these matters. And so all of this is part and parcel of a kind of an ongoing training that we can best be able to live our own lives, but also have a more positive influence on others' lives as well. And that's kind of saying really that this training in the mind of enlightenment encompasses all of this. And so here, what Master Shantideva is recognizing, this is the main cause for definite happiness in the future. And so in this regard, it's saying this training in the mind of enlightenment is like the king of training, the king of qualities to be able to have.
peja mangbu peja ganga gi kola ta tenjo gu luten ningbu le kira mangbu yongu dwa ta kasna ngozo kasna chida sanje gu semje thamje lu yor de yine sanje gu rik mimbar chebala ane chiga luten kheba chi mena sanje gu rik min thu mu dwa min thu mu da kasna sanje gu rik mimbar chebala sherap gogo yora sherap dang mare ta mi luten de sherap ta kasna sherap gu gogo yakshu de chida hada pada tebel hada sungabel hada hai rila ko 남주 더 셔러 요르다 이나야 피겔 동네 매바 인자 야 가서데 장주 그 셈께다 년종께다 또 사부 지고 요르바 나 미르라 남주 게 배주 땅에게 지단대 심어체 이 지단대 튕게 요바체 다가데 제 동네야 빠도 매바체 또 미르데 tel 요르바 근데 이도 아니데 뭐트에서 좀 봐. 안디자 디 고급 야구 현다 민다고 지래도 야 든든들 동네 싶도 요데 남주 요 말이와 남주 용마도 다 이다다 냐와도 거다데 동네 치다 저거 탑식하라 요거 말이야. 그 요거 말다 미루데 치다 동네 여바 가실라야 내가 동네 세게 탑시에 요야 되게 아니 봐줘로가 지에다 찍되게 약고 도다 저 약고 싶도 요야 되게 다데 잡아진 이제 갈라 간삼기 아니 거저 요야 되게 지체 안디가 동네 보스에 나대와 갈라 간삼 요지 아 동네 세다 때문에 막 보여 가서 코유스가 가서 environment 지금 장주 장바의 닝제의 장주가 셈다 된데케다 아니 뒤에 된다라 삼로탄도에 남주들 차제 먹고 좀더 다 도와리 주고 땡거 나로라 레뉴게 샤와지가 도와리 때나 다 밑이 그거 약수절에 도와 안 뒤에서 뒤나네 대적을 딜레 그거 약하고 다 뒤에서 그 뭐도 남게 도와다 뭐도 남게 도와 어디지 그래다 어디
So, this we come across this idea of taking the essence of a precious human rebirth again and again and again is constantly emphasized for us, and again, it's kind of like really to hone in on why this is so. That we say that all sentient beings have Buddha nature, but in the context of that, we say that only those with a precious human rebirth are capable of ripening that Buddha nature into enlightenment itself, because only those with precious human rebirth have the base wisdom to begin with, and the potential to augment that wisdom in that very life, on that very basis. That even though in other states of existence, we have the desire realm, celestial beings, the form realm beings, the formless realm beings, they have certain wisdom in those rebirths, but because there is no suffering, very little, they don't have the basis on which to cultivate renunciation or compassion and so on. And so there's no context for them to be able to really develop that side of wisdom that is based on a very thorough understanding of suffering. And so it's kind of like in human rebirth, one has that balance between a happiness and suffering. One is able to gain a recognition of the causes behind the suffering and behind a happiness as well, and to make informed decisions based on that recognition. And so it's kind of saying when one has that precious human rebirth, one has that extraordinary opportunity. It's a rare and very precious, extraordinary opportunity to be able to use that information. It's like that we are in a kind of the ideal environment to be able to fulfill our true potential. So it's like in the animal realms, of course, the benighted ignorance, they have no capacity to avail of that intelligence. Likewise, in the hungry spirits, they're so dominated by suffering that they're unable to avail of that intelligence. So It's here that we can recognize problems, we can recognize the cause of the problems, and we can put in place plans and mental attitudes so that the hurt or the difficulties of those problems do not impinge on our sense of well-being. And this is kind of, and to a point where we can completely eradicate, that suffering. And so it's kind of saying we have to recognize that we are in the ideal environment to be able to cultivate these qualities of renunciation, of compassion, and most of all, developing this mind of enlightenment. That even in the context of being under the influence of karma and the afflictive emotions, we have this capacity to recognize, and we need to recognize what an extraordinary opportunity there is for us to make tremendous progress on the path by using the intelligence that's available to us to center on what's important, to prioritize what's important.
本来我那时候呢，这个他这个几位新手过这个生活中的过这个三这个确实倒是没办法学吧，因此他电话起来给我说，觉得他呢电话起来给我说，甚至我说没那么叫没办几个月的，对，因为电话起来说吧，说跟个讲究什么这个特别密的了给我说是，他不等个月的，可是呢，可是呢，从那么少都给别电影呢，从那我告诉他，从那么少都给别电影呢，密的别看出来。 콜람 요라 콜람 조람 콜람 팔람 사도 타비엘라 타발라 니 리덴데 제대 차디야 가르스나 콜람 사도 타발라 지다 가서 람 샤바들레 연조 고고 일단 믹스기 연조 민자오 고고다 자주가 샘데 닌제데 셴데 민자오 고고요 그래서 이게 대화절라서 발 동해 나에 나와 통주 매바 인사 돈이 겁나보다 나와 통주 매바 인사 아니 통제 누가 찾아 내가 동네 무슨 나와 통주 열마 통주 열도 아니 년종다 자주가 셈 아니 저 뿌리다 보기에라 가서 내가 찾게 통제 찾아도 봐 내가 찾아 다 되게 다다 말아도라 나라 여와도 몸하죠네 배추 땅 마도네 하디고 열마 아 이게 그거 된쪽에 이게 가서 대화절라 소만 내기 장주 서버 소제 쪽에 아니 내려게 가서 나도 대회 미 르데게라 아니 뭔가 열어 봐 되는시켜놨어 가서 내가 솔랑사도 계획 때 개발자 임바 인산 내가 찾기요 이거 좀 어서 시험 봤잖아 오 나를 여와도 못 쳐봤잖아 다 대동에도 대거도 짜 맞은 쌈다 맞아 네가 그가 나랑 연조 계획 챙겨야 돼 네가 그 장주가 쌤 계획 챙겨야 돼 네가 그 호황군에 이방 못 얘기 챙겨야 돼 못 쳐봤잖아 챙겨 이방 거는 그래서 나좀 맞아 사브린 스템 해봤잖아 네가 그 연조 계획다 장주가 쌤 계획다 셀라 잡아도 니제 계획 네가 그 챙겨 이방 못 쳐도나 아니 오늘 깨와서 뭐 이거 타고 들어와 아니 배주 약을 땅 들어와
So it's interesting how so many make prayers to be born in the pure land of Sukhavati and so on, and that at the same time, that the beings there, Bodhisattvas and others, are praying to be reborn in the human realm, the desire realm, human realm, and that it's kind of cross purposes, really, isn't it? And that it's about being able to progress on the path, particularly the 5 paths: accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning, and so on. And that's saying we can proceed through the path of accumulation.
Path of sin, solam, sorry,
Tonglam.
But sin.
And so it's kind of like saying that one can proceed along the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, but to be able to progress from the path of preparation to the path of seeing, one must take a human rebirth. One must do that as a human rebirth. And so those bodhisattvas in those pure realms are praying to be reborn in human realm, to be able to make that transition. Why is this the case? It's all about conducive conditions, and that here we have to know that in this life of happiness, suffering, that is a human life, that we have all these really necessary conditions that are cherished by these beings in the pure realms who want to be reborn. Because in those realms, there is simply not enough suffering for them to be able to develop the necessary compassion and wisdom on the basis of that and so on, to be able to progress fully along the path. And so they're kind of like stalled where they are. And here we have to recognize that that is the case here. We have all of the conducive conditions to develop renunciation, compassion, that mind of enlightenment, which again fueling the wisdom, again really being able to see reality, that there isn't any better rebirth for us. So it's kind of really important that we actually admit this and recognize this, that this is such an extraordinary opportunity, and to be able to develop these qualities of compassion, renunciation, the mind of enlightenment. If when we have recognized again the rarity of it, the meaningfulness of this opportunity, that we then can make the most of it, or as as we constantly hear, take the essence of that precious human rebirth. So it's important to understand that we're kind of envied by beings even what regarded at higher levels, because we have the conducive conditions, don't we, to be able to quickly make progress because of making important choices.
어디 딱한테 저게 나라서 몸하죠 왔다 마심바 코라기 딱그 그래서 ignorance로 와 마심바 코라기 아니 나라서게 되게 찾아야 와도 몸하죠 왔잖아 딱 파버와 다디도 되고서 다른 못 쳐봤잖아 못 쳐봤잖아 아니 다다 미지 가서 하마디 아니 다 매주 야고스당도야 딱그 저 강투도 애니 전주고 중에 송환나 시게 잠지 장주고 셈다 아니 지 가서데 동리 도배 시라게 배 거투이네 아니 지그 심바지 조투에게 와 거투이네 디니와 아니 마케바 케바 권에 권도 패고 텐데치라 조투에게다 담자소로 마샤를 샤네 켈레소로 마소 제전다 어디서 다 거투토바이나 원데 야부시죠 요레스 야부시죠 때문에 딱 거서 para tanda 보통 거저 로카들 미지다 다 조사버려 양조 용에 요마다 다 가리 요르스나 다다 하데바 그제이나 지고저 배주 딱딱 땅수에 다 개치 버려 다 조와데다 가서 다 차차래 다 야고 제와이네 다 야고 좋아래 두자 좋아이마이네 다 차차 다 대바 내주제 그 양조 용에 가야 요마다 양조 출레게 조선 가서 따는 용에 그게 요마다 가리 요르스나 다다 하바디게 됐다 이마게 냠뉴라 때는 다게 미치게 처음에 배주 땅자 다 단에서도 문에 전에게 전다대바 배주 땅게 미치 전다대바 지기 인삽사체 어디서 제바이나 다 문에 전에게 다 지금 다 정부셔나 에 나베숑 워처바 전주 워처바 차오래 안티 펜데 구조 스텝으로 어디서 됐다 이게 마테세 작은 거네 제바이나 다 키라도 거네 저 강가 때들 제 담자 샤정 것도 강가 하루 버르잖아 어디다 되는 삼타체
And so it's really this sense of really not recognizing what we have here in what we have attained in a precious human rebirth. It's often the case of kind of wasting that opportunity, therefore. And so we kind of have to reach a point of recognition. Say that, look, I can't kind of pull the wool over my own eyes any longer. I have to admit that I'm in this extraordinary beneficial position. And therefore, I need to up my game. I need to really start recognizing what the essence is and taking that essence as the kind of, again, as a birthright of having these leisures endowments. And that's here to begin to kind of like seeing that, okay, so much of my life has already passed, but now I'm going to rededicate myself to doing the best I can in whatever time I have left, and to use it in the best way possible. And here's kind of saying, as outlined in the Bodhisattva's way of life, that means to do whatever I can to develop the mind of enlightenment, to clarify my understanding of emptiness, and to kind of see, whatever to develop the imprints, to really lay down the imprints of those particular attitudes as much as I possibly can, to kind of like, if not, I won't get this opportunity again. And so, and what's past is past, whether it was good for me, or I acted in a positive way, or I acted in a negative way. It's gone. It won't return again. So we have to use what's left, and to kind of really do the best in the time that we have left. And so, what is past will not come again, no matter how much we spend on it. It's gone. It won't come again. And so here, looking into the texts on Buddhism, and particularly this text of the Bodhisattva's way of life, this is kind of like a real blueprint for how we can best spend the time that is remaining for us. And I'm saying this for myself as well as to all of you out there, that we kind of should make a promise to ourselves to do the very best with the little time that we have left.
Good. That Chanju Sem Kobe Peyu Samba and Sem Ken Chovala Lapsu Nietzsche. That Tambo de la Chanju Sem Give Peyu Samba de la Nietzsche and Liu Shung Sheva, Liu Chen Sheva. That Tambo de la Dakaja Liu Shung Sheva de la Liu Shung Sheva de la Nietzsche Nessa, Tiba Porsche, Jawatube, Jawatube Patamata, Tiba Pong. To Congress, right? The to Congress and the Tamia, Chanju Semje, and Perry gave a Shabbat, such a new conversation.
And so, continuing on with the text, the second of the last set of outlines was how then we take the essence of this precious human rebirth. And this in itself has two subheadings. One is reflecting on the benefits of familiarizing ourselves with the mind of enlightenment, and two, then how to train in the activities of having developed those two mindsets. And the first of these has 2 points itself. One is the explanation of the text of this chapter, and the second is the explanation of the name of this chapter. And again, with regard to the first, there are two subheadings. One is the instructions on why it's correct to abandon negativity and to accomplish virtue. And the second is reflecting more extensively on the benefits of the mind of enlightenment.
다 자주가 세 페이셔바들 니체는 디바포시 자와투 파테바스타 레 아간자 자주가 생게 페이게바셔모스 다간자 자주가 생게 레다 자주가 생게 페이드 마시바이나 아니 디 투베케시 보드 싱가 말바도 자주가 생데 다 페이셔바들라야 다간자 자주가 생 귤레 케발라 다 지금 나사베 디바데 디바티바 뽕예 아니 다간자 소놈 자체부 잡담 하잖아 namne chetu go mesa and kaza tipa poche and yawa tu ripa to tamba cha ota chanju ga semje peyu Giaba sama wacha ta tangbo de la ta kanja ja tikba polche giaba do de ba tamba de la jeda tsemo mero ting ga jeda tsemo mina tirum na lojo keje ramna tamba ta deshe sanje tuye jalam na jeda solam lo de tanga chu.
And so with the first of these, so that is that subheading of the instruction on why to write, to abandon negativity on the one hand and to accomplish virtue on the other, is related in the 5th verse, which reads, just as a flash of lightning on a dark, cloudy night, for an instant brightly illuminates all, likewise in this world, through the might of Buddha, a wholesome thought rarely and briefly appears.
Ore ta kore jeda pena tsemo mera ge kaza mina ge tirum ne asa lojo ye kenje tu keji sam ana sorab to na wa tamba tarsda deshen do sanje ge tuye sa jalana kibu jigden pa nala sonam cha nya bata sonam chiguta nya be kewa tu be lotu kewa tu te lotu thanga yusam chwa kaza chung yusam chungki sa wote de chwa res tu ten du yo ma res da chom chom yo de to gyundo mi chwa de da we na kewa nyam chwa ni la ta to ne ba sheba chela kewa tu te tiba wala pe ba cha wos.
And so here, using this example, saying just like a flash of lightning on a dark, cloudy night that can illuminate kind of like everything for a moment. And they're saying like just like that, due to the power of the Buddha, all those worldly beings on the great highway of existence can, for a moment, engage in meritorious activity by having a virtuous thought, and that such a thought is both brief and transient. And they're saying here that because it's not continuous, that virtue then is feeble, is fragile, and so we need to understand how to make it permanent. And it's very, very important then that we engage in the activities of accumulating virtue on the one hand and abandoning negativity on the other.
다 간제 지다 저 코아다 조아리도 그 선제 용서다 다 가자 저 가서데 아니 저기 가서다 저기 스모 문화는 이제 지금 티번데 신전에 빼다 가자 동행기 유튜브 다 무트네 동행 줄라 다 뭐네 그 동행 유튜브 채널 아니 디 언제 동행 무트네 다 동행 속을 제가 나실라 소바다 가자 어때 내가 동행 짱짱게 나대 대외겠다 네 가서 저 누가 따고 레테어 왔다 레테어 다 뒤에 나네 다 밀리도 또 자가르다 밀리데 될라야 다 아니 지금 가서라 다 간자 지금 다 든든다 냐와 이달라 되다 자가르데 이나양 다 간자 동에게 그저 나네 대대다 미나 티번시 저 사도 겨와 주비게 다 그거 매딩 소리잖아 와 대대 이나양 다 간자 지금 가서라 다 간자 지 갑갑라 다 지금 갑갑라 아니 지금 산제 주에 갑 용되게 요래 산제 주에 아니 되게 아니 산제게 아니 지금 저거 최고 편바 주에 갑갑 지원도 다들 로치원하시 축사점도 매되겠지 와다 되게 그거 나라도 다리 산제 워스도 제토요 마데 아니 달로 이동 두께서 이게 원래 산제 좀 되게 편해 아니 대바 단다 마냥 맞잖네 내 때문에 그저다 로큐에 값이 캐되어라 다디 그거 된 거좀 마셔봐 쟤네 아니 다 지금 제 마도 봐이나 아니 제 산제게 때문에 제 잡을인데날 못는데 되게 말다 라야 잡을 다가라를 게 녀바 요 말에 아니 지금 어서다 레 상행이 원게다 겨와 가발레나 그러나 다 망체는 나가서 나라도 룽아 있으면 제단 때는 최마다서 루발에 게 패지 다 쳐봐 레디도 다 단단해 지금 최기라 아니 최삼 검숨 쟤는 들라 바자 샤바 이나니 아니 그 잡을린 들라 마전 잡을 샤바질 게 봐이나 최다서 루바질 게겠다 그 유튜브 두고 와 유튜브 텐데 좀 마중아 이마이나 모토네 뭐바 나도 줘야려면도 야죠 야다 줘야라 그겁시다 매디겠지 뭐다 디게지 워쳐 받잖아 거기 이내 산제기 때문에 여봐 거기 이내 단단한 신다다 이번 차요 말이야 어때 디게도 워쳐 받잖아 다다데 겨와 두고다 쓰게 알고마 제바 소라제 다른 국가 상부 15층다 저 중반이 와지 중대와지 아니 뭐트바 제대로 다 그래 디자 딜라테나다 디파사바 디파 뭐트네 아니 보통 쇼거네 샤톰지에 에 겨와 가리 바이나 소는 거 소되게 되는 아니 줍답지에 로다 야라 두발라 소베데 권에 줍답지에 소사팀장 제죠
So here saying that, in cyclic existence, here we are, whether amongst any of the 6 realms of cyclic existence, it's like one is living in a kind of a darkness where nothing is clear. And so we kind of engage in the causes of suffering, even without knowing so, continuously. There's a sort of a blockage of recognition, of understanding. And so here that the beings in that realm like abide in this kind of very unconducive or inconducive circumstance. But as a human being, having taken on a human being, we are freed from that ignorance of in the animal realm and the hungry spirit realm and the other realms, and that we can experience, suffering, and to the point that we kind of may feel that there's no great opportunity for us in this life. That in a way we are as well, kind of like have this darkness over our lives. But due to the Buddhist teachings, even though the teachings, the Buddha appeared 2,600 years previously, that those teachings have not yet deteriorated and certainly not vanished. And so, due to that power, like a flash of lightning for us in this world, that we have an opportunity to really act in a more enlightened way. And so to recognize on the one hand that this is something also rare, that the Buddhist teachings are still extant and still wholly genuine, and that this doesn't last forever. Again, it's due to causes and conditions that the teachings will go elsewhere, disappear from this world. So it's not like we have all the time in the world, as it were, to be able to make this a valuable time for us. And so it's here we need to engage in the activities of gaining the wisdom arising from learning, from contemplation, from meditation, and to lay down those imprints to really establish the causes. This is the time for us to establish the causes, and so that we know that the Buddhist teachings won't be around all the time, and that all the time we won't have this opportunity. And so now is the time to, on the one hand, eradicate negativity through process of confession and purification, and to engage in the activities of the accumulation of virtue using the 7 limb practices, etc. So then we shall leave it at there, because the time is almost up for today. So bringing our attention to the figure we have visualized in front, and again acknowledging the Buddha, and then making this invitation to the Buddha to come to the prearranged seat that we have on our crown of the lotus, sun, and moon disk mandala, and making the invocation prayer: "O glorious and precious Root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind." We recite this thrice at the end of the first the figure begins the movement from the heart center of the central figure. At the end of the second, arrives at our prearranged seat, and at the third is established steadfastly on our crown until we attain enlightenment.
년중 삼로스탄에 된데 년중 예배 로다가라 랑 닝데 페마 답제칠 교수 삼사체 되네다 되네다 같이 된데게 심제 탐제기도 산제 고마주 나데 가와도 제주네다 제주는 많이 받아가라라 셈샤 아니 된데게 가서도 가작가 좀 된데 셈샤 된데게 아니 가서도 다 예대게 로다가라 아니 가서도 니메이킹 거지 교수 삼사지 뱀 닝가마 답제때도 어떻게 내소 삼사체 되네 다 가져져 심제 탐제기도 산제 고마 맞으면 타보도 그냥 요원도 타바지고도 삼사지 고바셔 아니 된데 예배 로티 한 다웨킹 거지 교수 삼사체 되네 반대자가 라마좀 거지 다기 닝가 때문에 거지시고 구도 모두 짜도서 스테드 순대 잡아라 때는 라게 치고 아니 타바투베 오고티 아니 왜 그나 받을마 라게 치고 마 쇼네 라게 닝기 이게 딱다 대표마 담아지베 때도 아니 쇼소 삼사체 담배 가서 태 니베 가서 쇼 순배가 땐서 산제 고마마도 제소다 야고 시고 또 고바셔.
And so then we offer mandala, the stem and limb practices to the Buddha on our crown. And then before now, we reflecting on how to establish that same invitation seat of lotus, sun, and moon disk mandala seat at our heart center. And we begin by reflecting on the renunciation, developing this understanding of the whole suffering of a cyclic existence and so on, and how that impacts on all sentient beings, and then developing that mindset of really wanting that definite emergence from cyclic existence to establish the lotus seat mandala, and reflecting on then this I, engaging in this meditation. Where is this I? Is it amongst the body, the mind, engaging in this analytical search for that I, the not finding of it, and in the pausing at the mere negation of the object of a negation, and right that very mind then establishes the sun disk mandala seat, and this self that we are searching for, is again that attaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and wanting to work for the benefit of all sentient beings as quickly as possible. And from that mind of enlightenment, that exact moment of developing that great aspiration, arises the moon disk mandala seat. And then we again utter the invocation verse thrice, glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. And at the end of the first recitation, the figure moves down through our crown into the central channel. At the end of the second, arrives at a prearranged, pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, is established steadfastly until we are ourselves attain enlightenment.
다 야오지 못해. 아니 데레 니 배마다지 만남주 다 가좀전 남주 닝내다네 니가들 도제 가고 쟁가바 제가 지금 이래서 가게 되겠어. 고바시. 아니 뒤에 타고도 덤베 생아 다에다 엄무는 마음문이라서 저는가 고라 숨유 근치 고바시. 전에 알아봐서 나 쓰는가 고라 숨유 근치 어디서 치고를 인데체. 전에 난고라 때 때가 오면 예다마 해도 좀 타다가도 뭐 샤만에 있어 왔는가 난고라 숨유 근치 어디서 고바시. 근데 라게 닝기 유소 아니 라마토레 오보 구송토라 리셉션 라게 치고네 간디가 발로 리셉션 아니 리셉션 아니 라게 루코나 소지와 마젬발레바 미사와 쳐봐 단 다리세 주요 타마츠도 가제 낙선에서 loktal라 소베 아니 저도 소다게 돈바다 가와 다가니세 자주선 발라바다 가와 싸가게 담세다 가와 도나 제베 하나마도 왔다 라싱이 하나마도 단 예바 건제지 여바 있는 세디엄 생가마 대가마 토마 매바 디바도 찾아 내가 찾수 삼사체 내가 찾수 삼사체 다가니 이제 최주배 계제 류마대와는 소바 아니 생기 강에라 소바 되게 그가 시와체서 다가니 이제 다 롱티리 겨 탐제 다네 뉴도 산제 고마 토발라 탐에게 당신 게 가고래 never chapel. That Tamega Nashi can't have them never chan. Cannot have a Tabana Shabachi Chatuma Yakushu from the commercial.
So then, as a result of there, we of course really rejoice in having the Buddha at our very heart center now to care for us. And that then the lotus petals of the lotus seed mandala fold over that figure. They are sealed at the tips by a white five-pronged vajra. And then the three mantras encircle the leaves, the mantra of Tayaka, the Buddha's name mantra in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri, wisdom in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination, again in a clockwise direction. So then from within the sealed packages, from the Buddha, light rays emanate, permeating through that structure to pervade our entire body from the crown of our head to the soles of our feet, thereby purifying all of the negativities and obscurations that we have accumulated in the cause of engaging in the 10 non-virtuous actions of killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct related to physical negativities, of lying, of harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip related to speech negativities, and the mental negativities of covetousness, malicious intent, and wrong view. And also those negativities accumulated through our infractions of any of the vows of the individual liberation vows, or the Bodhisattva vows, or tantric vows, as well as all those actions of our naturally occurring negativities or actions prescribed by the Buddha. And so all of these are completely purified, and that all obstacles to our practice as well, such as any discomfort in the body, any illness or ailments that we have, are completely pacified. The sickness and the imbalances in the channels, winds, and drops are purified, the elements and so on, and particularly the proclivity we have for ordinary appearance, that's completely nullified, and we see everything with a pure appearance. And so we kind of like have this tremendous feeling of release, purification at the end of this process.
And so and Lama Shajas good Henji chicken channel, social with the Lama Shajas and Kulu Jusu, substation. So the Shindo Travel send the Lama Shajas and the two the Henji chicken channel, social send the Lama Shajas and the Tulu Jusu, Langi Lunga use of the Lama Shajas and the Kuzun to Moyeme Jusu, substation. Tayabu Jusu, Sakobasha, Rangi Lunga, Lama Shaja Kuzun Moyeme Jusu, substation. And Nedia, and Negi Jan Haja, Jen, and Castle that, Kaja, Dabishi to do so the commercial, and Lama Shajas Kusu to war image to what did Pugale, and Lama Shajas in the part member train, and draw it to Kasinja Tanja La, and because Takajet Lama Shajas in the number there, and Kaso Takajet Masa Maluba, Kangala Timala Tene, and Tedage, and the Ton Tiba the Tibat of the Tana, the Lama Shajas of Ku, to the war image Chasu, some commercial. Near the Dagan, Negi, Tanja Ten, and the Kaso Tabashila Suba, or Kusu, some such. Simja Tamja to the Sanja Kuma to be said, Tanima didn't took to the Sanja, Simja Sanja Salako, Yakushu, Kako.
And then through the combination of my own most subtle wind as being as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of the Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is automatically transformed into the enlightened mind of Buddha. Now I see my own body, speech, and mind as being inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. And this is something really wonderful. I kind of take a moment to rejoice in that and to see how I've been able to attain that state of enlightenment. And the place that I am in also is completely transformed of all faults and arises as a fully perfected Buddha realm. And then through seeing myself as a fully enlightened being, I send out countless rays of light in all the 6 realms of existence, and they touch all the sentient beings in those realms, and descending into their bodies, minds, they completely arise automatically as fully enlightened Buddhas. And that they, without exception, and the Buddhas also, the place of residence transforms, is completely purified of all fault and rises as a fully enlightened Buddha realm. And again, I'm able to rejoice that having attained that state of enlightenment, I'm able to lead all the sentient beings to that state of enlightenment as well, thus fulfilling my objective. How wonderful.
심지어 단자 아니 라마샤자세 고말 고바다 아니 대주베처럼 소소히 개와 갈주바 요번 대다 탐제다 개와 탐제다 안다네 두고 소소 저 유대는 뭐 좀 똑바 파다 점래 거기 디 대와제 대외 동바제 대돈니스 뭐 이시 계속 써서 고마셔.
And then through kind of contemplating all the sentient beings who are being led to that state of enlightenment, or all the virtue necessary to lead them in that to that state, and myself as the agent of these actions are completely empty of any objective existence and are merely imputed by thought. And through this contemplation, the notion of bliss arises, which combines with the notion of voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
뭐 다다다다 뭐가 이제 좀 문제가 된다라고 거요. 이네요. 다다다가 이 지금서도 교리 줍샤바티 아니 지금 링고를 맞아 봐. 그래서 시다 교고 먹어 봐. 문제 하나 되는 시 줍주에 아니 교리 좋아쇼. 아니 디 체도 다 가르고 보여서는 라귤라 가서다 라사제 고마 토고 디 토발라 자주고서 연주고 생귤을 깨고 근데 이마이자 다 소소 사나 도나 토나 예나 다 내가 근데 중앙 이마이나 디기 주나 동네 주나 대다 근가 아니 그래서 잠이제 자주고서 돈이 또 시험 깨게 튕겨도 좋아서 튕겨도 좋아서 뭐하잖아 근데 그 튕겨도 아니 줍투바지 용하쇼 줍투바쇼
Of course, I realize that I'm operating at the level of aspirational imagination here, of being able to attain such a state just in that way. Of course, how could that be? But at the same time, I make it with profound and sincere dedication that I will be able to manifest this situation, this state for real, not taking a long time, but it may quickly come about. And that in order to do that, I realized I'm going to have to transform my continuum to really cultivate the realizations of renunciation and of bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, and correct view. And that I am going to use every possible situation, wherever I am, in whatever situation I'm in, whomever I'm with, whatever the situation is, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm going to see every moment as a conducive conditions to laying down the causes to develop these actual realizations.
어떻게죠?
You are Avalokiteshvara, a great treasure of compassion not aimed at true existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of stones, Losan Jakpa, at your feet, and make you cross.